borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.
Continue to participate in this type of events is one of the key to know more about different business and different opportunities so that you can grow your business and your contacts.
Personally, I have met a couple of people and a couple of organizations which are very critical for networking, where you will either meet mentors or potential clients, that kind of thing, because that's very important even as a businessman.
It was really good to see data that is just based on people's lived experiences. I think that data is really useful for businesses because now when they are thinking about designing products and services, they can actually design with actual data that has been verified, that is factual, and that came from the potential users and customers that they are designing for.
One thing I have to say is that know your product. It is very important for you to understand your product so that even as you sell it to other people, you really know your product, you really understand, you really have a vision, you really even know why the product is as it is and why you came up with the product. So it is very important for anyone who wants to do business and even to scale to understand their product.
One is that you just don't go into business based on a hunch. Okay, you must have what we call a clear plan. Know exactly where you are, know exactly where you're going, and then you can decide on how to actually get there. And thereafter, you must always keep track of the progress that you're making.
My advice from the beginning, this is like, you need to meet people face to face. The second advice is that you need to give time to cooperation, because first you need to become partners, you need to know each other, and then go to business related cases. And maybe at the end to not be afraid to travel, to discover new countries, and to feel like the citizen of the world.
We are so grateful to AAMECC to a large extent because they have been very flexible. We got together just in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we are doing this, and it's a resounding success. So we thank them for allowing us to present and to meet the business leaders that have been present today.
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.
Continue to participate in this type of events is one of the key to know more about different business and different opportunities so that you can grow your business and your contact.
Personally, I have met a couple of people and a couple of organizations which are very critical for networking, where you will either meet mentors or potential clients, that kind of thing, because that's very important even as a businessman.
It was really good to see data that is just based on people's lived experiences. I think that data is really useful for businesses because now when they are thinking about designing products and services, they can actually design with actual data that has been verified, that is factual, and that came from the potential users and customers that they are designing for.
One thing I have to say is that know your product. It is very important for you to understand your product so that even as you sell it to other people, you really know your product, you really understand, you really have a vision, you really even know why the product is as it is and why you came up with the product. So it is very important for anyone who wants to do business and even to scale to understand their product.
One is that you just don't go into business based on a hunch. Okay, you must have what we call a clear plan, know exactly where you are, know exactly where you're going, and then you can decide on how to actually get there. And thereafter, you must always keep track of the progress that you're making.
My advice from the beginning, this is like, you need to meet people face to face. The second advice is that you need to give time to cooperation, because first you need to become partners, you need to know each other, and then go to business related cases. And maybe at the end to not be afraid to travel, to discover new countries, and to feel like the citizen of the world.
We are so grateful to AAMECC to a large extent because they have been very flexible. We got together just in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we are doing this, and it's a resounding success. So we thank them for allowing us to present and to meet the business leaders that have been present today.
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.
Continue to participate in this type of events is one of the key to know more about different business and different opportunities so that you can grow your business and your contacts.
Personally, I have met a couple of people and a couple of organizations which are very useful for networking, where you will either meet mentors or potential clients, that kind of thing, because that's very important even as a businessman.
It was really good to see data that is just based on people's lived experiences. I think that data is really useful for businesses because now when they are thinking about designing products and services,
Good
they can
afternoon,
actually
everyone.
design with
Okay, good
actual data
morning.
that has been verified, that is factual.
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Mildred. Okay. The speakers for today are in. I think we have only 5 minutes to make sure that we panga ourselves well. Kindly. The speakers are in. Purity Muni.
Good morning, Star. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Madam Purity, and welcome. Let me see, Mr. Estin Bolinda.
Yeah. Good morning.
You're
Good morning.
in.
This is Einstein speaking. Yes, I can hear
Thank
you.
you so much.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you.
I traveled. I'm joining from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, but it is okay. That's why I'm mixing on time. Did I see Caroline? Caroline?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for putting this together. We appreciate so much.
You're welcome, President.
Asante, asante. Yes. So now, then the other speaker is Daniel. CPA Daniel Bwire. Office team, can you call him? He needed to be here so that we agree. But given the KRA team is here, we just begin with them because of time. So who do you want to begin? I guess Caroline will say hi as well in the whole team. I don't know, Carol, right? You will
Yes,
say greet.
sir.
So we can bring you to make a few comments at the beginning, or you want to come for wrap up?
Yes, I can give introductory remarks, and my colleague Mildred also is here.
Your
So
colleague?
Mildred Mugambi is our moderator.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mildred
Mildred.
Mugambi. Yes, Mildred and Dolly. Yeah.
So wait. So you have a moderator. How do you? Okay. That's very good. So Mildred, how do you want us to work together? Do you want we invite Mildred? Mildred will be moderating on your side, right?
Yes, sir.
So how do you prefer? We open it up and then invite her, then coordinate you guys.
Yes, please.
You prefer that? Eh?
Yes, you can introduce from your end, and then Mildred will guide us appropriately.
Okay. Mildred, are we in sync?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Godfrey. I'll do that.
Okay. I don't know whether somebody can give you my number then, but you will be alert in case I signal, I want to say anything. We can say we are co-moderating together, okay?
Actually, Mr. Godfrey, if you'll allow me, you can moderate. I'll just introduce our team, then I'll give you the you'll be the moderator for the day.
No, let's
okay.
co-moderate. Let's co. I prefer that. Okay. I prefer we co-moderate if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So we'll be able to signal one another and all that. Yeah, but I wish I can get your WhatsApp number. We can chat there in case of anything.
Okay. Let me see if I can chat with you. I'll send you my number on the chat.
That's okay. All right. So okay, I know Mildred will be inviting, but who starts from, okay, we said Caroline to do introductory remarks. Then after Caroline, who comes, just for our info, Mildred will bring who?
I'll bring in the team doing the presentation, Miss Purity or Mr. Anston. I don't know who's going first between the
That's
two.
what I want to know now. That's what we're asking now.
Okay, Purity, who's going first?
I will be going first.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. So I think we are. Miss, what have I done? Just a moment. I think we are ready. We are ready to begin. Where have you given your number? Office team, if you've seen her number, kindly share with me. Okay. I think it is almost time, or it is. It's 1 minute past 4. That should be 11 on your side. So it's time. We just begin. Okay. Mildred, I've seen it. No issue.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I see we already having a significant number already in the call already. We appreciate so much. So in the interest of time, we will just begin. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Once again, on behalf of Africa, Asia, Middle East Chamber of Commerce, that is AAMECC, I would like to warmly welcome our participants, trainers, business leaders, entrepreneurs, accountants, and professionals joining us today for this important webinar on eTIMS compliance and business preparedness. We are living in a rapidly evolving business environment where digital transformation is no longer optional. Okay, government, regulators, and businesses are increasingly embracing technology to enhance efficiency, transparency, and accountability. In Kenya, the introduction of eTIMS, by the Kenya Revenue Authority represents a significant milestone in this journey. Okay, and as a chamber committed to promoting business growth, trade, investment, and professional excellence across these regions we represent, which Kenya is in, that's Africa, Asia, Middle East. We recognize that compliance is not merely a legal obligation, it is a strategic business advantage. Organizations that prepare early and adapt effectively position themselves for sustainable growth, improved governance, and greater competitiveness. Today's webinar has therefore been organized to help businesses understand, 1, what eTIMS is and why it matters. Number 2, the compliance requirements and timelines. Number 3, common challenges businesses face during implementation. Number 3, the practical steps to prepare your organization. Okay, then opportunities that arise from digital tax compliance. We are privileged to have distinguished experts from KRA and the private sector who will guide us through these critical areas and answer our questions. I encourage everyone to actively participate, take notes, ask questions in the chat. We'll even have a Q&A session there at the end, but you can ask questions even in the chat and make the most of this opportunity. Our goal is that every participant leaves this session better informed, better prepared, and more confident in navigating the eTIMS landscape. I would also like to express our appreciation to the Kenya Revenue Authority and all our trainers and partners for supporting this knowledge sharing initiative. Once again, welcome to today's webinar, and I wish you a productive and insightful session. I wanted to pass the baton to Mildred Mugambi from KRA. She's going to moderate the next session and invite the speakers from that side. Mildred, take the mic, give us, bring in the speakers, tell us who they are, and then we'll be handling this together. So you're all welcome, and take it over, Mildred Mugambi. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Godfrey, and good morning to everyone present in today's sensitization. As you said, my name is Mildred Mugambi. I'm from Kenya Revenue Authority, specifically the Civic Education and Tax Outreach team. And I liked your introduction, Mr. Godfrey, because as you said, eTIMS compliance is like a strategic business plan. Sorry. So this training is very essential, and I hope it will be beneficial for every member present today. Please engage with us. You can chat on the chat box, give your comments, give your questions, and we'll address them as we go along. Before I can introduce our trainers for the day, I have my assistant manager, Miss Caroline Gitegi. She can maybe give a few remarks, then we can start off.
Thank you, Mildred. The Chamber President, Mr. Peter Mutinda, the board members of AAMECC, and members of the Chamber and the private sector and KRA team members, we are glad to be in collaboration in this meeting. And just to retaliate what Mr. Mutinda said with regard to digital transformation, KRA has embraced cutting-edge technology so that
Evelyn, kindly, Evelyn, please mute your mic. Okay, you can proceed.
All right, sorry. So I can just start because of that disturbance. The Chamber President, Mr. Peter Mutinda, the board members, the members of the Chamber, and also the private sector and KRA technical teams. We are glad to be in sync working with AAMECC. And just to retaliate what the President has said, KRA has embraced cutting-edge technology with regard to eTIMS, among other processes. And digital transformation is the way, DT is the way to go because it integrates technology into all business areas, fundamentally changing how we deliver value to our customers. And it's not just merely a software upgrade, that is eTIMS. It requires a complete overhaul of operations, workflows, and also organization culture. So we believe through eTIMS and other technology that KRA has developed, we are going to just learn and appreciate them as we get to ask and inquire about what needs to be done to improve our processes. So we look forward towards learning from our experts, and also we look forward towards working with AAMECC in future. Thank you very much, Mildred.
Okay, thank you, Miss Caroline. She's given us where we're at, and we got a brief introduction of why this is important. So we'll just dive into it to see what eTIMS is, how compliance looks like, and opportunities as a result of that compliance. To start us off will be Miss Purity Moni, who's an expert with the Electronic Tax Invoice Management System unit within KRA. Miss Purity, you can take over. Purity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mildred. Thank you, moderators, and everyone present. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
And I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, Mildred. So good morning, our extinguished members of AAMECC Chambers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to today's session. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to join us today to learn more about eTIMS and validation. My name is Purity Munyi. I'll be taking you through eTIMS. I'm from eTIMS operations team. I'm joined by my colleagues, Evelyn Ooko and Estine Bulinda, who will be taking you through validation. So I'll begin I'll start us off with eTIMS. What is per se, and in short, what is eTIMS? I'm sure we've all heard about eTIMS. Probably some of us know what is eTIMS. Maybe some of us don't know what is eTIMS. Probably some of us think it's a tax, or they are not even sure what it is. But today we are going to learn more about eTIMS. So what is eTIMS? In short, eTIMS stands for Electronic Tax Invoice Management System, and it's a software. It's a software that helps you generate invoices electronically. So eTIMS is not a tax. That is one thing you need to know. So eTIMS is not a tax. It's like a software that KRA developed to assist or facilitate taxpayers with generation of invoices, that is electronic invoices. And who should onboard on eTIMS? It's everyone. All persons in business ought to onboard eTIMS. It's not just the VAT registered taxpayers, it's everyone. As long as you're conducting businesses out there or a business, you ought to register for eTIMS. It doesn't matter how much you earn, whether you earn 100 bob, you earn 100 million, billions, you ought to register and onboard on eTIMS. So why eTIMS? KRA introduced eTIMS to try and modernize tax administration in line with global trends, reduce fraud, and enhance the accuracy of reporting transactions. This is to ensure that there is increased revenue where we had missing traders and all those kind of things. So as much as that is the major or the main reason why we introduced eTIMS to modernize everything, we also have benefits that eTIMS offer to taxpayers. One of them is the solution is free. That is free of charge. Whether you register yourself from the comfort of your own home, whether you visit any KRA office and you are trying to register and onboard on eTIMS, it's totally free. So it doesn't have a charge. If you come visit our offices, we have offices everywhere. That is everywhere. So anywhere you walk into and you want to register for eTIMS, it is completely free. So we also have stock management module that assists taxpayers with maintaining their own inventory. Some systems that we have, like the eClient has the stock management module. We have VSCU also that has the stock management module. It assists you with managing your inventory. If you're selling goods and you have a warehouse, a stock, or you need to manage your stock from wherever you are. Let's say you have someone who you've employed to be physically at the store. So you can manage stock. You don't have to be physically there and you don't have to do all the paperwork. You can manage stock using the system. Also, taxpayers can track their invoices that they've already issued. If you log on to the eTIMS, that is the eTIMS taxpayer portal, the online portal, you'll see all the invoices you've generated, whether you've generated with eClient, all the invoices will be listed there. We also have the benefit of it fostering fair business environment between business people out there. We also have enhanced accuracy in return filing and payment of taxes. If you generate your invoices using whether TIMS or eTIMS, whatever or all the invoices you've already generated, they'll be in your return, whether be it end of the month return or end of the year return, you'll see all your invoices in your return. It also legitimizes your business and spurs business growth. So this is why, or this is how the eTIMS, how eTIMS is benefiting taxpayers out there and anyone using it. So we have some requirement and compliance expectations that comes with eTIMS. So taxpayers are required to ensure every business transaction is accurately captured through an electronic invoice, not just some. We have some people thinking that you just need to record some transactions and others you don't need to record. That is a very huge misconception, because if you record some transactions and some you don't record, come end of the month or come end of the year, there will be some transactions that will be missing from your return, and you'll come to our offices and you'll try and tell us that there are some invoices that are missing, but as long as you've not generated the invoices using our solutions, they'll not have been transmitted to our systems. So you have to ensure every business transaction is accurately captured. Also generate individual electronic invoices for each transaction. You should avoid consolidating or lumping up sales. There are some people who do businesses or who operate the business during the day as normal and then end up deciding to consolidate or lump up the invoices at the end of the day. That is, they generate one invoice. That is wrong. Also, another reason you should not do that, let's say you sold maybe a service, an item to someone, then they come back and they try to tell you that they forgot to get the eTIMS invoices and they need their PIN captured. That means we'll have to reverse that invoice, generate an invoice for that particular client that you're dealing with, and also generate another invoice, or maybe generate all the invoices for the day. So to avoid all that, because the more you generate invoices and reverse, the more we are questioning your integrity, because we are like, why are you generating so many invoices, or maybe one invoice and then at the end of the day you reverse it? So it doesn't make sense. You should generate or capture individual transactions. That is, anyone or any client who walks in or any client that you service, you ought to give them an invoice and not lumping up the sales. You should also apply the correct tax type in respect to the good or service. We have there are some taxpayers out there who think non-VAT is a tax rate. No, non-VAT is not a tax rate. So if you're selling something that is exempt or that is zero rated, you should indicate zero rated or exempt and not indicating that it is a non-VAT. Non-VAT is a status. You're either VAT registered or non-VAT. So non-VAT is not a tax rate. We have tax rates that are 16, zero rated, zero rate, exempt. So if you sold something that is exempt or is zero rated, it is not in the bracket of 16%, and you want to generate an invoice, kindly note you should not indicate that it is non-VAT. That item has a tax rate. It is either exempt or it is zero rated. Also ensure accurate description and values are captured on every invoice. You should also always ensure that whenever you're capturing the PIN, you've captured it correctly. If you capture the wrong PIN, that means, let's say, for example, the PIN ends maybe with an L, with an I, let's say an I, and then at the end you wrote an L. That means that particular good or item can be claimed by that other person that you indicated their KRA PIN. So you should always ensure you check the KRA PIN when you're generating the invoices. Ensure the KRA PIN is correct, the name is correct, the phone number is correct, the item is correct, the description of the tax is correct, that is the tax rate, the amount is correct. So you should ensure that when you're generating the invoices, you capture the correct or the accurate description and values of the goods or the item. Proper use of eTIMS will enable you to accurately report, to give accurate reporting of business transactions. It will also ensure that correct data is captured in the tax return. This is very important because if the wrong data is captured in your return, that means when you're filing your return, you will either have missing invoices, or the numbers that you have per your books and the numbers that we've submitted or facilitated to you, they are not adding up. So you should ensure that you should capture everything, or you should generate every single invoice whenever you do a transaction. This is to ensure that the data is correct. It will enable support for legitimate expense claiming. That is, when you're claiming for expenses, you will not have issues of let's say maybe your account manager questioning whether the expense is wholly and exclusively for the business, for the furtherance of the business. So you'll have like a legitimate way you can claim your expenses and your inputs. It also enhances transparency in business operations and strengthen overall tax compliance. So these are some of the, let's say, also benefit of properly using eTIMS, and also the requirements for complying with eTIMS. We have some solutions, several actually, for eTIMS. So I will begin by telling you our journey and where we began. So we began with a device-based machine that is called the ETR, and some of them know it as the eTIMS devices out there. This is the first ever solution that we rolled out. So the cost of compliance was really high, and most taxpayers complained, and we listened to taxpayers because this gadget would cost maybe in between 40 to 80,000, and most people were like, this is a very huge expense for a business, especially if you're starting up. Spending in between 40 to 80 as an expense that probably you'll not claim for it. So we had the taxpayers, and we came up with other solutions. So the first solution that we began with is the ETR devices. That is, it's either called the ETR or other people call it the eTIMS. That is a device-based. It's a hardware. So after the taxpayers complained, we had them, and we came up with solutions. That is a software solution, not just one, but several that would cater to all and every taxpayer out there, regardless of whether this person is a boda rider, this person is a company owner. We developed solutions that could be able to accommodate all the taxpayers out there. So we began with online portal. You can access the online portal through etims.kra.go.ke. So this one is suitable for taxpayers with minimal transactions or people who are dealing with services. If you're, let's say, a lawyer or maybe a tax consultant and you need to register for eTIMS, you don't have the goods, you don't have to have the software that we download on the phones, on the laptops. You can use the online one. That is, you log on to etims.kra.go.ke, you register, and you begin generating invoices. So this one is suitable for anyone who has minimal transactions. You don't have like a bulk of transaction, and also anyone who is dealing with services, they can use the online portal. You can access it just like we access iTax. You can access it from anywhere as long as you know your KRA PIN and the password that you use, because your KRA PIN is the user ID, and then the password that you created is the password that you will still use. So we also have the eClient. This one is a downloadable software. It's like WhatsApp. It's a software that is installed for you. It's like the same way you have WhatsApp. It's the same way we install that software in each and every devices that you want to use for your businesses. So you can use it on multiple devices. That is the laptops, the desktops, the computers, the PDAs, the phones, the tablets, whichever you have out there. You can be able to download this software and it can be used. Also, another thing about the eClient is, as I was explaining, the same way you have WhatsApp on your phone, and I cannot be able to access that WhatsApp unless I have your phone. It's the same way with this software. The device that you use for this software, it's the device that can be able to access a generation of invoices. So if you put it on your phone, or if you downloaded it on your phone, that means your phone will be used for the business because that's the only way they can be able to generate the invoices. And if you installed it on the desktop, that particular desktop is the one that is going to generate invoices. For the laptops and the desktops, they can be able to download like a soft copy that is a PDF, or you can also generate them from your printers in the office. For the Android ones, you have to buy a special printer, a thermal printer that is compatible with the phone, and then the invoices that you receive or you get are like they are tiny, like the ones in the supermarket. So for the phones and for the Windows and the Androids, they are a bit different. We also have another system that is eTIMS integration. Sorry for that. eTIMS integration, that is if you have your own billing system and you do not want to move from how you operate your business, you just want to integrate it. We usually have the VSCU and the OSCU. One is virtual, one is online. So we do have two types of integration. That is self-integration, where your ICT team sits with our ICT team and our business team, and we try and test your system to see if it's compatible. And if it's compatible, you can go ahead and do the integration. So that is the self-integration, where you yourself integrate your own system. We also have another kind of integration called third-party integration, where us as KRA, we have already published integrators out there, and we've published them on the KRA website. You can visit our KRA website, and then from the list, you can choose whomever you want to integrate for you. So the third-party integration has like a middle person. That is, we have KRA, a middle person who has already been approved by KRA, and then so this person should enable your system and our system to be compatible in such a way you can generate an invoice, and the invoice can be transmitted to our end, and it can be a compliant invoice. So there are those two types of integration. That is the self-integration and the third-party integration. And for the third-party integration, all the integrators, we've published them. Anyone who is published on the KRA website, we've published them on the KRA website. Those ones are the approved integrators. So you have to ensure that when you're selecting an integrator, it's someone who has already been certified by KRA. We also have this the simplified solutions. These ones are mostly used by SMEs or the small traders. That is, we have the USSD, we have the eCitizen, we have the mobile light, we have WhatsApp invoicing that is in progress. So I will explain more on the USSD and eCitizen. And also, when I'm explaining about them, I'll also explain more about the buyer-initiated and the reverse invoicing, which is the buyer-initiated and the reverse invoicing. This is like a sort of a solution where you as the buyer, how invoicing happens is you as the seller, you're the one who is selling to me, whether it's a service, it's an item, you ought to give me an invoice. So as the name goes, reverse invoicing. So we are reversing this scenario where you as the buyer or me as the buyer, I'm going to generate an invoice on your behalf. So this is where a buyer can generate an invoice on behalf of a seller. Usually we are used to sellers generating the invoice. You walk into a supermarket, let's say, you walk into Carrefour, you walk into Naivas, and them as the supermarket, they ought to give you an invoice. But this is where you, let's say, I am buying maybe bread from Naivas. Like, you can reverse that invoice in such a way I can generate that particular invoice on behalf of Naivas. But in this scenario, you cannot generate on behalf of that kind of an entity it has to be someone who doesn't, maybe they are not tech savvy, they don't know how to generate an invoice, let's say like the cleaners, the border people, those kind of people. So this one is majorly for small scale sellers, the farmers who are not versed with invoicing and you want to generate an invoice on their behalf. So I hope up to there we are okay. So we have had some enhancements with eTIMS. When we began the rollout of eTIMS, if you wanted to register for eTIMS, you would have to fill in a commitment form, and we would need you to have the ID of the director. That is, you will have to come with a commitment form and an ID, you as the director. And if you're coming to register on behalf of someone else, we would need you to come with the KRA PIN, the commitment form, the ID of the director, and an authorization form. That means you as the company, you've authorized someone. Could be maybe your accountant, could be maybe your tax consultant to install eTIMS on your behalf. But so far, we've simplified all this. So when you're doing the registration, the only thing you need to know is get to know your KRA PIN and get to know let's say if your KRA PIN starts with an A and you're registering, you will register and you will not need a commitment form and the approval will be automatic. If the KRA PIN you're registering for is a P PIN, you will need the PIN of the director who is registered on iTax. That is, we shall need you to have the KRA PIN of, maybe you have, let's say, 5 directors, 2 directors, 3 directors. You don't need all of them. You just need one of them, their own personal KRA PIN. This way, you'll need to, once you've already signed up, you'll need to input their KRA PIN and also verify that KRA PIN. It will give you the number, the phone number of the director. And that director, if you're actually registering on behalf of someone else, that director will receive an OTP. So you cannot register unless that director gives you that OTP. Or if you're the director, the only way you can register if that OTP has been sent to your phone, and then you can proceed and do registration. So registration, you can do it from even the comfort of your own home. So you can register, and then approval, right now you don't need to walk into any KRA office for approval. It is automatic. So once you register, the registration, we also have tutorials on YouTube, KRA TV, where if you need to learn how to register, you can register yourself. So you don't need to go to any KRA office unless maybe you're really stranded and you really need assistance. You can register from your own comfort, and then approval is automatic. We also have provision for taxpayers to onboard multiple solutions. Before, when we began, if you had registered for online, you would only be on online. But right now, you can register for online, be on eCitizen, be on eClient, as many solutions as you want, or as many solutions as the ones that can serve your business. So right now, you're not limited to one particular solution. We also have unified data visibility. You can see the invoices that you've already generated from your online portal, that is the taxpayer portal. We also have accessibilities. Taxpayers can access via multiple devices. Even if you don't have like a smartphone and you have like a banner phone, that is the button phone, you can be able to generate the invoices. That is, you dial *222#, you register, and you can be able to invoice. So you can use smartphones, you can use laptops, you can use anything. And as I've already also told you, we also have something else that is coming up, which is called WhatsApp invoicing. It will be as easy as the same way you text someone on WhatsApp. So when you have maybe a deal out there, you've done business out there, you can just log on to WhatsApp and be able to generate an invoice. But that one is work in progress. We are still testing it, but we are going to implement it soon. So we also have key features of an invoice. this is an example of an invoice, an eTIMS invoice. We have the TIMS invoices and the eTIMS invoices. The TIMS invoices, the invoice number is all numbers. It has like, I think 11 digits, which are just numbers. But for the eTIMS invoices, the invoices starts with the characters. That is, it can be KRA CU, KRA MW. It starts with KRA something. But for the TIMS one, if you see an invoice number that starts with just numbers, just know that invoice is a TIMS invoice. So this is how an eTIMS invoice looks like. And also, just a key note you need to note is if you are already registered on TIMS, you don't really need to leave TIMS and join eTIMS if TIMS is working perfectly for you. That is also a compliant invoice. So if you're on TIMS and maybe you want to expand your business, you're allowed to buy other gadgets and configure them. But if by sorry, someone needs to mute. But if by 2023 you had not already registered for TIMS, you cannot, as of now, register for TIMS. You have to be on eTIMS. So if you're using TIMS and it's working perfectly for you, you don't need to move from TIMS to eTIMS unless you really want to. And how you can move from TIMS to eTIMS, you have to retire that device first and then use the eTIMS one. So if you're on TIMS, it's a fully compliant way of generating invoice. It's just the same as TIMS, only that is a device. So I needed to note that, you guys to note that. So these are the key features or the key details of an invoice. One, it ought to have a seller's PIN. This is the person that is selling to you. This one is not optional. The person selling to you, if they are registered on eTIMS, that eTIMS, you see the way I told you, we have the A pins, the pins that starts with A, those are individual pins, and we have the non-individual pins, the pins that starts with P. So once you register on eTIMS, I told you when you're logging in online, you use your KRA pin and the password you've already created. So that pin, once you register with a pin, let's say I register with my own personal pin that starts with an A, it will give me my name. That is, it will have my name, it will have my KRA pin, and it will have my name. If you register with a pin, that is a company pin that starts with P, it will have the pin. It must have the pin because you've already registered the pin, and eTIMS captures that data. So the pin of the seller.
When I first started investing 15 years ago, I really got
sorry, someone needs to mute. So the PIN of the seller has to be there. So the PIN of the seller is not optional. It is mandatory. If you find an invoice out there that doesn't have the PIN of the seller, that's not a compliant invoice. The PIN of the buyer on the other side is optional. The same way we walk into a supermarket and you're not harassed to give out your KRA PIN, it's the same way this works. Unless you want to give out your KRA PIN, it is optional. It is totally optional. If you're claiming for inputs and expenses, you need to give out your KRA PIN. Whether you're buying from the supermarket, whether you're fueling your vehicles, you need that PIN captured for you to be able to claim for that particular expense. If your PIN is not captured, there is no way to merge this invoice to your PIN or to the expenses and the inputs that you're trying to claim for. Also, another thing that needs to be there is date and stamp, description of supply and quantity, QR code. If an invoice doesn't have QR code, it's not a legit invoice. It needs to have a control unit serial number. It needs to have a control unit invoice number. I'll also show you how you can verify the validity of an invoice. It also needs to have an item code, if applicable, a taxable value, tax rate, and not just tax rate, correct tax rate, and total tax amount. And also it should have the total gross amount. So if you have an invoice, how can you check the validity of this particular invoice? How can you verify that this particular invoice is legit? One, you can use the QR code. That is, you can use a QR code scanner to scan that QR code. If you don't have, there are those phones that can use their cameras to scan a QR code. If your phone does not use the camera to scan the QR code, you can download a QR code scanner where you can scan that particular QR code. We also have facilitated access KRA, another way you can validate that particular invoice. Once you visit iTax, the platform itself, before you log in, where you input your KRA PIN, and there's a math you do there, and you put your password. Before you actually log in, if you type iTax on any browser, that is Chrome, Firefox, whichever browser you're using, once you type iTax and then you click on iTax and go to the iTax platform, you will have some other services we are trying to offer you there to also ensure that also when you're trading with someone out there, you have the transparency. You don't need to come to also our KRA offices to know if that person is compliant on eTIMS, if they are compliant on VAT, that is they are not non-compliant. If you need all that, we have the PIN checker. And also on that platform, bottom right, there is something called the invoice number checker. So we have so many things on there. You can just log on to iTax and see for yourself. But I'm just interested in this one feature that I need to show you how to check the validity of the invoice. So bottom right, there is an icon there written invoice checker, and then it tells you click here. Where it tells you click there, you click. It says click here. When you click here, it will tell you to input the KRA, the invoice number, sorry. So you will input that invoice number as is. Every taxpayer has like a special number that is given to them, KRA something, 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 like a lot of digits, or KRA MW and a lot of digits. So that is the special number. But then there's a stroke. If you see stroke 1, that means it's invoice 1. If you see stroke 2, invoice 2. If you see stroke 100, that is invoice 100. So when you're inputting those characters on the invoice checker, you need to input the whole thing, the KRA CU, then the numbers plus the stroke, and then the invoice number. And with that, whatever, let's say maybe if the invoice looks like this, it will give you all the data as per the invoice. You cannot buy timber and then once you scan the invoice or you use invoice checker, it gives you that you bought tea. No, if you bought timber, it will give you bought timber. If you bought tea, it will give you bought tea. So you always need to confirm the amount. And if it doesn't give you the data, that means it's either that person has not transmitted that particular invoice, or maybe when they were generating the invoice, they were not online. So those are two ways you can be able to validate an invoice. That is, you use the QR code scanner, you scan the QR code, or you use the invoice checker, you input the invoice, and it will give you details. So we have some few transactions that are exempt from generation of eTIMS, that is emoluments subject to pay. We also have importation of goods and services. We also have airline passenger ticketing, investment allowances, also interest income for financial institutions. So these are some of the transactions that are exempt from generation of eTIMS. So we have some ongoing developments. We have eTIMS implementation for fuel sector. Us as KRA, we introduced a special kind of integration. I told you in the solutions that we have integration. So we have the VSCU, the OSCU, but this kind of integration is only for fuel stations out there. So all fuel stations, I think as of now, ought to have already integrated their system. So this kind of integration is only for fuel station. So we have the VSCU and the OSCU that is for businesses out there and for people with their own billing system. And we have the integration for fuel stations only. We also have by initiated and reverse invoicing, and we also have simplification of return filing that Estin will talk more on. So I'll just major on the fuel sector integration and the buyer and the reverse invoicing. So I'll begin off with the fuel station. So as I told you, us as KRA, we introduced a special kind of integration for fuel stations. That is, we integrate their system to ensure that whenever you walk into a petrol station and you fuel, immediately the nozzle is taken back to the fuel pump. You get an invoice. I'm using the supermarket because we've all been into a supermarket and we know how the supermarket works. So when I walk into a supermarket and I buy maybe, let's say, a sweet, whether that sweet is 2 shilling, 5 shilling, 10 shilling, I'll still be able to get an invoice. So the same way you walk into a supermarket and someone generates an invoice for you, whether you've bought goods worth of 100,000, whether you've bought goods worth of 2 shilling, an invoice always automatically is generated. So this kind of integration that we did for fuel station works the same way. Once you take the nozzle and you fuel your car, you fuel your boda, you fuel whatever you're fueling, once that nozzle is taken back to the pump, immediately an invoice is generated once that nozzle touches the pump. So instantly you get an invoice. So you should always ask for your invoices once you visit the petrol station. So effective 1st July 2025, all petrol stations were required to have integrated to this fuel station integration. So fuel stations or petrol stations out there, they are not supposed to be using the eTIMS devices, that is the old ETRs, or they are not using this other kind of solutions, that is the online, the e-client. No, they have their own kind of integration. That is, as I'm explaining to you. As I'm explaining to you, once you fuel, that is, once the nozzle is taken from the fuel pump and the fuel, they dispense fuel into your car, into your boda. Immediately they take the nozzle back to the station, to the fuel pump, hapo kwa iyo pump. Immediately the signal is sent and you get an invoice. So that is how the system works. So remember to always ask for your eTIMS invoices. If you walk into a petrol station, that is, if you're a business person, you will for sure need that invoice. And you should also ensure that you give out your KRA PIN if you're claiming for inputs and expenses. So I'll take you back to the supermarket again. The same way, I walk in, I buy bread and I buy milk, and no one asks me for my PIN. But if I need to claim that bread and milk simply because I have maybe a restaurant and I need to claim that particular bread and milk as an expense to my kibanda, I'll have to give out my KRA PIN. So the same way with the petrol station, you will for sure get an invoice, immediately get an invoice to fuel. But if you need that particular invoice to claim for inputs and expenses, you will have to give out your KRA PIN. So when they are fueling, ensure you tell the attendant that I'll need that invoice and you can capture my PIN. This is my PIN. That is, if you need to claim for that particular expense or claim for inputs. So we are on buyer-initiated and reverse invoicing. As I explained to you before, this is an additional solution that us as KRA we introduced to support these small businesses, including the farmers, to comply with eTIMS, because we are trying to ensure that, yes, we've come up with a solution that can be used by someone who knows how to operate the internet, maybe someone who has a laptop, someone who has a smartphone. But what about someone who has no clue how they need to generate an invoice? Maybe they don't have a smartphone, maybe they have that banner phone, the Bonyeza phone. We are trying to ensure that all our solutions, like each and every solution has a category it caters for. Like the USSD, that is the *222#. That one will be for anyone who doesn't have a smartphone. And also, if you had a smartphone and it got lost and you have your kabambe there, you can actually even register and immediately give someone an invoice. Maybe there are those people out there who don't know how to use WhatsApp. They've never been on WhatsApp. They will probably feel like, no, I can never generate an invoice using WhatsApp, but as someone who is digital and someone who likes things in a simplified way, I will for sure use the WhatsApp invoicing, because I'll be like, if it's as easy as logging into WhatsApp and generating an invoice, for sure I'll log into that WhatsApp and generate that invoice. So the buyer initiated, this one was the buyer initiated and the reverse invoicing. This one was a solution that KRA came up with to facilitate the small scale traders out there and the farmers. They had the farmers in mind, because they were like, if we are asking this farmer to generate an invoice, how will this farmer generate an invoice for us? So this solution, both of them, because these are two different solutions, and I'll explain you the differences between both of them. But the both of them, the buyer, that is you as the person buying, whether it's the company buying from the farmers, that is their produce, or that is the company getting services from a cleaner who doesn't know how to generate an invoice. So you as the buyer of the service or the good can generate an invoice on behalf of the seller. So the difference between the two of them, I'll start with the buyer initiated. Buyer initiated is accessible and it can be accessed by all citizens, by all taxpayers out there. Me, you, anyone, boda rider. Buyer initiated can be accessed by anyone. You can log on to ecitizen.kra.go.ke, or you can use the USSD, that is the *222#. So I, as the buyer, will log on to ecitizen.kra.go.ke. On ecitizen.kra.go.ke, once I've already registered and that is registered to the e-invoicing, there is a portion you'll see there where it gives you the portion of buyer initiated. This is why I'm telling you it's accessible to everyone out there, the citizens, the taxpayers, anyone out there. So once you log in, you'll be able to see the buyer initiated icon on there. So I, as the buyer, will click on the buyer initiated, but I have to log on to ecitizen.kra.go.ke. eCitizen is the platform that holds all government entity platforms. So this one is accessible through eCitizen. Hapo kwa eCitizen, there's always a portion for KRA. So this one is accessible through the eCitizen. So once I've done that, me as the buyer, let's say I am buying a cleaning service from someone and I need to claim for that cleaning service. Now this cleaning lady or cleaning gentleman, gender equality, has, let's say they have that Bonyeza phone or they have the banner phone. They will use that banner phone to register on the USSD, that is the *222#. So both of us, for us to be able to operate, we have to be registered on eTIMS. I will register on eCitizen, they will register on the *222#. So they don't need a smartphone. So once they've already registered on *222#, I, as the buyer, person buying the cleaning services, will generate an invoice on their behalf, key in their details and everything, and generate that invoice. But once I've generated the invoice is still a pro forma. That means, you know how you give someone a quotation for the services or the goods so that they gauge whether they are going to buy from you or not. So that's the kind of an invoice I'm talking about, because it's not yet approved. It's just like a pro forma. I've generated, yes, the invoice, but until it's approved, it's not an invoice. So this person, they've already registered on *222#. They will proceed and either approve or reject. They will check the invoice. to ensure that that invoice that was generated is actually cleaning services, and maybe she charged me maybe 1,000. If I indicated 10,000, she'll have to reject, or he'll have to reject that invoice. So the person who is selling that service, that is the seller or the good, have the right to either reject or approve. Once the seller has given the approval, an invoice will be generated. So once they give the approval, that is when it becomes an invoice and not a pro forma. So before they approve or they reject, it's not an invoice. It's just a pro forma. Sorry. Once they approve, that is when it becomes an invoice. So until it's approved, it's not an invoice. If they reject, it's still a rejected invoice. It's still an invoice, but rejected. So the buyer will receive an SMS notification that eTIMS invoice has either been accepted or rejected, with a link to download. So the same way you get the link, it's the same way the person using the banner phone or the Bonyeza phone gets the link. So you can log on to eCitizen and generate the invoice, and they can also access the invoice via that link. So both of you get a link. So that is one thing you need to know. For buyer initiated, if you generate an invoice, approval has to be given. Yes, we came up with a solution that will cater for the small people out there, but we are also trying to ensure that we as KRA, we are trying to ensure that there is no manipulation. You don't just get to generate invoices on behalf of someone with no consent being given. So both of you have to be registered on eTIMS, only that will be registered on two different solutions. You as the buyer is eCitizen, her or him as the seller will have to register on the USSD, but consent has to be given. With this one, consent has to be given on each and every invoice. So if you generate an invoice and that person has not given a consent, it's not an invoice, it's a pro forma. So it's just a pro forma, and it will not appear in your returns until that person has given a consent, either given a consent or rejected. So that is how buyer initiated works. Consent has to be given on each and every invoice. This is to ensure that there is also transparency on both sides, you as the buyer and you as the seller. On the other hand, we had the reverse invoicing. This one, so the reverse invoicing is majorly for, you know how I told you we have integration, the VSU and the OSCU for people with their own billing system, and we have integration for fuel station purely. So this is another form of integration for people dealing with a large scale of farmers, and also they have their own billing system. Let's say like Kina KTDA. They have their own way of doing things, and they have their own billing system. That is, they have their system of invoicing. So what we are doing, these tea farmers, sugarcane farmers, avocado farmers, whoever, those companies dealing with farmers out there, they have their own system, they have their own billing system. So what we are doing is we are testing this system, their system, to ensure that their system is compatible with our system and they can be able to generate a compliant invoice. So that when this farmer or this small scale farmer or large scale farmer, whoever it will be, this farmer brings their produce to this person can be able to generate an invoice on their behalf. So the same way they came into a contract, like let's say iPurity will be giving KTDA my produces every single month or every single week. That is a contractual agreement they came up or they got into. So the same way that works, the contract, and they expect me maybe every other month, every other week, every other season. It's the same way this reverse invoicing will work. If the farmer has a contractual agreement with this particular company, this farmer, in short, has given the rights to this company to generate an invoice on their behalf. So for consent with the reverse invoicing, it's given once they enter into an agreement. And that invoice can only be generated once there is a transaction going on. So once I take my produce there, they can give me an invoice, immediately give me an invoice. So when I entered into a contract with them, I gave them the right to also generate an invoice on my behalf. So that is one thing you need to know. For buyer initiated, since it's accessible to everyone out there, and we all know how some of us can be out here. So for buyer initiated, consent has to be given every single time. For the reverse invoicing, since KRA has already integrated for this company, so if anything were to happen, this company will be held liable. So for reverse invoicing, consent is given once you enter into a contractual agreement with that particular company. I hope we've understood the differences between the two. I will be going to my second last bit. That is the common eTIMS mistakes that businesses make out there, or maybe misconception that maybe people have out there. So the common mistakes that people do out there is consolidating sales instead of capturing each individual transaction. As I told you in the beginning of the presentation, that each transaction has to be recorded separately. So if you sell a cup, invoice that cup. Don't sell the cup, sell the IT service, sell the cleaning service, and then you consolidate all of them. No, if you sell that cup at this particular time, generate in that invoice for that particular cup. So for each invoice, if someone comes for another cup, generate another invoice. So do not consolidate invoices. Another misconception people have there is that only B2B, that is business to business transaction, require eTIMS. One thing you need to know, if you do not register that transaction that is B2C, that is business to customer, if you do not register it and you only register business to business, kindly do not expect to find that particular transaction in your return at the end of the month or at the end of the year. If something has not been generated using TIMS or eTIMS and it has been transmitted to KRA, there is no way it will appear in your return, because whatever you generate from your system is whatever will be in your return on iTax at the end of the year or at the end of the month. So eTIMS invoices are not for B2B only, they are for everyone, whether it is B2C. So whether it is an end consumer, an end customer, or a business transaction, in between a business and a business, every transaction should be recorded via eTIMS. Also, failure to capture accurate description of goods and services. You need to ensure you capture the goods and services correctly, because there is no way you will give a service and then you, let's say, for example, you give transportation of sugarcane. There's no way that service and lawyer services or another item will have the same, they're in the same category, sorry. So you need to capture, if you're generating an invoice, you'll need to capture that good or service accurately. We also have selecting the incorrect tax types. As I told you before, non-VAT is not a tax rate. It is a status. We have VAT registered, that is a status, and non-VAT registered, that is a status. That is not a tax rate. Tax rates are like zero rated, exempt, 16, those are the kind of tax rates. So there is no invoice. If you're VAT registered, you should not even be generating an invoice that says non-VAT. One, that is wrong, because there is no service that is non-VATable out there. Unless you as a person, your compliance status or your VAT status reads non-VAT. So non-VAT is not a tax rate. Also, capturing incorrect taxpayer PIN or taxpayer details, you have to always ensure you capture the correct PINs to ensure that your clients or your customers can be able to claim for inputs and expenses. Inadequate training of staff responsible for invoicing processes. We usually find let's say, for example, the director themselves, maybe they came and registered, but then the director is not, he is yes involved in the business, but he's not there day in, day out. He's not the one who generates the invoice. The accountant generate the invoices. So once we've already trained the director, you find that, or maybe the manager or whoever came to register for eTIMS, you find that when they went to train the accountants or the person generating the invoices, they did not give them adequate training. So kindly, if you find yourself in that kind of a scenario, any KRA office, I told you we are everywhere in the country, so you can walk into any KRA office and you can be given training for free. You can even walk in with an invoice and ask that particular person that you find to assist you or train you on how to generate an invoice. And if you don't feel like walking into any KRA offices, we have something called KRA TV. And on YouTube, we all have access on YouTube. You can be able to learn how to generate an invoice. We've put everything out there, how to generate an invoice using online, how to generate an invoice using eClient. So sometimes I feel like unless you don't want to, that is when you'll not understand. If you really want to and you don't want to come to any of our offices, mind you can be able to learn how to generate an invoice from your own comforts of your own home. So we even have like a user guide on Career website. So we've ensured we've given you all these informations everywhere. You can use the user guide if you, let's say, if you prefer reading, there's a user guide. We've captured everything for you on the user guide. If you prefer listening to something and doing it as you listen, you can go to the YouTube and check our YouTube channel, or you can Google that particular wherever and you'll see how to generate the invoices. And if none of those, you don't like listening, you don't like reading, you want me to teach you, you can visit our career offices, and anyone, I mean, like anyone will be able to assist you with invoicing. So you have options. Also, issuing credit notes in different tax periods. This is something people need to know. If you generate an invoice, let's say, for example, you're VAT registered and we're in the month of June. If you generate that invoice this month, kindly ensure if that invoice is incorrect, check your invoices before the end of the month. If that invoice is incorrect, so that you don't have any problems while filing returns or while saying that, oh, I generated a credit note, but it is not in the same period. Ensure that you generate the credit note in that particular tax period, that is that month. If it is meant to be in June, ensure you generate that credit note in the month of June. If you generate it in the month of July, that means you'll have to pay tax on this invoice that you generated, since they are from two different tax periods. The same applies with income. If you generated an invoice in 2025 and you generated the credit note in 2026, note those are two different tax periods, and the invoices will appear in the different tax period. The invoice will be in 2025 and the credit note into 2026. So I hope we've understood the misconceptions and the mistakes that people make out there, and we are going to do better. So something you need to note is businesses should view eTIMS as a part of their daily operations rather than only a tax requirement, because as I told you before, if you do not generate that invoice using TIMS or eTIMS, kindly, when it comes to the end of the month or the end of the year, do not come and tell us that you are not able to generate that invoice. We are doing trainings out there to everyone, like we are doing even machinani trainings, we are training companies. If people request for trainings, we are training everyone. So we are trying to ensure that people are familiar and they know how to use these eTIMS. So if you do not generate the invoices, come end of the year, come end of the month, kindly do not bring your written invoice and say you want to claim for that particular invoice. Tuko na eTIMS, Jamani, at this rate, it's as easy as the same way I buy bundles, it's the same way I can generate an invoice. I don't think anyone at this rate they ought to have an excuse. It's as easy as dialing *222#. So if I hope we've all understood the things that I have trained, and if we've not understood, or you've understood halfway, or you've understood but you still need to understand more, you can visit the KRA website, that is www.kra.go.ke. And then there is an eTIMS icon bottom left. You can click on that, and this is the page that it brings you to. You will know what is eTIMS, types of eTIMS, system-to-system integration. This is where you can find the third-party integrators that have already been authorized by KRA. You can learn how to onboard on eTIMS, install eTIMS, and also learn more about Buyer Initiated. So if you need to contact us, you can use the 0711 099 999 at the end. So you just have 0711, then 0, and everything else is 9. So that is how you can call us. If you want to email us, you can email us on teamsupport@kra.go.ke. So this is the team support email. Team support means it's both eTIMS and Teams. So if you need to contact us, you can use that email. If you want to visit us physically, you can come to JKUAT Towers, either on 7th floor or on 8th floor. But as I told you, every KRA office out there, whether you're from Moyale, you're from Kisii, Kisumu, we have KRA offices everywhere. So you don't need to come all the way from one county to another to come to Nairobi for us to serve you. Any office you walk into, you will be served. That is something you need to know. Also, we'll take you through the integrity. I told you before that eTIMS is free. So it is free and accessible from all KRA TSOs, that is any office, KRA offices countrywide. Also, if you need to report maybe bribery and corruption anonymously, you can use these channels. We have iWhistle, we have Complaint Information Center, that is the email. We also have a number that you can call. So kindly note, eTIMS is free. And with that, thank you very much for listening to me. And I'll give it to Estin to take you through the validation process. Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure training you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very, very much. Purity, that was intensive. I don't know that Mildred is still here.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. So thank you so much, team, for joining. This is AAMECC KRA webinar, and we are talking about eTIMS. Quite elaborate over there. We are doing this together. AAMECC is Africa, Asia, Middle East Chamber of Commerce. You can be able to reach us, look at the charts there. Our links and everything has been sent over there. We have many people joined. I noticed, that's why I'm coming in. I noticed there are many people from different countries. I can see Cameroon, I've seen Zambia, I've seen South Africa, Anna over there. Dr. Julius, I've seen people from different countries, and I know you have interest to invest in Kenya. We are very much privileged to have our own Kenya Revenue Authority, which is the regulatory body on tax collection. They have gone line, they have gone digital, and it's more effective, it's easier, and so it's rolling it out through to the public. And we joined them, to be able to do this because we believe this enhances the way of doing business and increases efficiency, and compliance is a good thing actually. So we really appreciate everybody who is on board. We will be having one of the experts within ourselves. We are a membership organization. We have CPA Collins also coming later. To talk to us. But for now, we're going to have the next speaker from KRA, and we have a moderator, Madam Mildred. I want to bring her in so that she can bring in the next speaker. And then I think in the breaks, we can play the clip, 1-minute clip after this speaker. Welcome and stay on board, learning a lot. Please keep the questions coming in the chat. We see them there. And please take note. This is important. This is one of those sessions you'll appreciate as time goes. Thank you so much. Mildred, take the mic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Godfrey, and thank you, Ms. Purity, for that presentation. We've been able to understand eTIMS and how compliance looks like, even the different solutions that we have. And I can see your questions on the chat box. We have one of our experts, Ms. Evelyn, also responding to the questions, but we will be able to address whatever will not have been addressed at the end of this second presentation. So the next part, we're in the filing season and you've seen validation of expenses. So Mr. Einstein Bulinda will take us through how that looks like. He's from the eTIMS Operations Office within the Large and the Medium Taxpayers Office in Kerry. Mr. Einstein?
Good morning, everyone. This is Einstein Bulinda, and we are moving to the second part of the presentation for today, where we will be looking at the changes we've done to the filing process with the utilization of the eTIMS and TIMS efforts that we've just gone through. Now, in terms of this second phase, I'll be focusing on filing of the income tax return, and I'll be taking you through some of the validations that have been introduced in the filing system, which is iTax, in regards to the incomes that taxpayers are expected to declare in the return and the expenses that they are allowed to claim in their returns. So, to begin with, we'll be looking at the background of and the rationale for this transformation journey, just to give you a brief overview of where we've come from and where we are aiming to get and what we want to achieve with the additional validations that have been introduced in the return itself. Then we'll have a look at what are some of the validations on income that have been introduced in the return with regard to the third-party data that we have, or in regard to eTIMS data and the holding taxes that we have. Then we will also have a look at what are the validations that we are passing on the expenses allowable against taxable income that the taxpayer is declaring in their returns. With regard to the 2025 return period filing, we'll look at some of the data sources that KRA is using to validate the returns of the taxpayers, any exemptions and exclusions we have, and any special treatments that we have in regard to the filing of the 2025 return, which is due by 30th June 2026 for those who have December year-end, in regards to special obligations like monthly rental income and turnover tax. Then we'll have a quick overview of some of the compliance checks that a taxpayer can do for themselves to ensure they have a smooth filing journey with the introduction of the new features that we have in place. And also, just to mention, we will also be looking at some of the additional changes that we have done on the filing journey with regard to the feedback that we've received from the taxpayers after the rollout of these validations had been implemented. So, just an overview that the validation of income and expenses is based on the fact that there was a public notice requiring taxpayers in 2025, requiring taxpayers to support all expenses that they claim against taxable income to be supported by eTIMS and TIMS. And I think we've gone through the requirements of onboarding the eTIMS solutions. These are the tax invoicing solutions that we have in place. And any exclusions that we have in place also have been covered by the eTIMS team. Also, with the progression of onboarding of the digital transformation of how we collect tax through data-driven compliance, we have also incorporated also other data sources that KRA is having in its possession to enrich the filing journey of a taxpayer. And these extra data sources, other than the eTIMS that we've talked at large, We also utilizing data from withholding tax records just to establish the income of an individual for a given financial year, and also we are utilizing the customs data to confirm the imports that a taxpayer has made, and subsequently we'll also be using the customs data to identify the income that a taxpayer has generated in regards to exportation of goods or services from Kenya. And the overall goal of this is to enhance the voluntary compliance of the taxpayer. And you will realize that initially we used to have what we are calling post-filing compliance checks by KRA, whereby a taxpayer submits their return, and then KRA has to do compliance checks on the returns that have been submitted already. So with the data that we are receiving from eTIMS, from the tax invoicing, what we are trying to do is we are trying to move the compliance checks in near real time at the point when the taxpayer is processing or filing their return. So instead of waiting for the returns to come for us to validate some of the values that the taxpayer is self-assessing themselves, we are presenting to the taxpayer some of the information that they had submitted to KRA or transmitted to KRA through the various activities that they have conducted during that financial year that is under taxation, in the likes of issuing of invoices when they are conducting their businesses or receiving withholding certificates from their customers at the point of payment. Then this information is used to enhance the return such that when you are submitting your return, we've already done some real-time validations of the expected income that you expect you to have submitted to KRA. So again, we are aiming to reduce filing errors that we have been seeing in the past, whereby taxpayers would either overclaim expenses that or could claim expenses that are not allowable for tax purposes, or the risk of under-declaring your income when you are submitting your return, either by omission or by a typo. And then we also aim to have the compliance checks to be robust such that you have confidence your return that you have submitted has met some level of compliance that KRA expects. And it's also just to increase the transparency between the KRA officials and the taxpayers in regards to the information for their tax declarations that they expect for that period. And bottom line, since KRA is the objective is to collect revenue for the government, we are also aiming at minimizing any tax evasions that have been practiced in the past, if any. So with this new year filing season, what we are saying is we have made a lot of introduction of validations. One of them is we have those values or attributes of a return that we are pre-filling to the taxpayer, and we have those attributes to the return that we are validating the taxpayer. So it's important to know at this stage what is being pre-filled or auto-populated in the various channels of filing and what is being validated. The same might appear to be similar or the same thing, but the two are quite different when you look at it. So in terms of pre-filling, this is information that when you are either filing your return using the Excel templates that we have in place or the online web-based form, what you're saying is the pre-filling is whereby we are displaying for you or presenting to you information relating to the return that you are filing and the period you are filing already filled in the forms that you are giving. These are examples of the PIN, the return period, the business types. If you have any tax credits for that period in regards to either withholding certificates for income tax or rent income, we are pre-filling this information to you. Examples of installment taxes that one has paid for that period. If you're filing a return for partnership, we pre-fill for you the details of the partners and their profit sharing ratios. And if it is an individual return, we are also pre-filling for you the incomes that your employer had declared in their pay as you earn returns, the taxable amounts that were deducted, and any social health insurance fund and affordable housing levy deductions made, or the pension contributions made by your employer after deducting from your pay during the year. And lastly, the personal relief. These are the values that we will refill to an individual, and in addition, including also mortgage interest that has been paid from their incomes, and any with exemption certificates that the user might have or the taxpayer might have is refilled to them at the point of filing the return. So you'll find that we have some returns whereby the taxpayer is only expected to validate the information that you have pre-filled in regards to its accuracy and then submit the return. So we could end up having some returns whereby there is no additional information that might be required to input. But for businesses, again, there is limitation of what we can pre-fill to them. And now when it comes to businesses, what we are doing is we are validating some of the information that is being provided by the taxpayer in regards to income and expenses. But when it comes to pre-filling, we will only pre-fill the basic information, that is the PIN details and the return period that they are filing for. We'll also pre-fill any payments made or any withholding credits. And I'll just be having a session whereby I'll take you through a quick overview of the return template itself, so that I'll be explaining to you what is being pre-filled again in regards to business income and what is not going to be pre-filled but validated at the point when you are submitting your return to KRA system. So in terms of the tax credit that we are pre-filling, as I had mentioned, we are pre-filling the installment taxes. These are the payments that are made by a business entity on a quarterly basis during its financial period to KRA, based on either the previous year's profit or based on the current transaction affairs that they've had for the year so far. Then next, we are also pre-filling for you the amounts of the withholding tax credits that you've received from your various customers who had deducted and paid to KRA. And this withholding will be in regards to the income tax. This is normally transaction based. And then we'll also pre-fill for you withholding taxes credits based on rental income for the taxpayers who are not registered for the monthly rental income. And then lastly, for advance tax that is normally paid on commercial vehicles, this value is also pre-filled the taxpayer's return. So the action that as a taxpayer you are required to do is to confirm that the correct amounts have been pre-filled for you when you are submitting your return. And in the event that there is any inconsistency between what you expected for that financial period and what KRA has pre-filled for you, then it warrants for an inquiry to be made to KRA for a review of the data that has been provided and a resolution on the same. So what are the data sources that we are using to achieve all this? For us to validate and to fill some of the information, what is this? Okay. I think there's someone annotating my just a minute. I need to confirm a few things. Okay. Sorry for that. So as I was mentioning, what are the sources of validation that what are the data sources that we are using to validate or fulfill some of the information? So by and large, we have three sources that we are using. The first one is the eTIMS and TIMS data, and this is for the local purchases and sales that have been made by the taxpayers in the period that they are filing the return for. So whenever you are making a sale or you are receiving goods or services from your supplier, then where there is an eTIMS invoice that has been issued, either by yourselves or you as the recipient, will be used to provide some validation in the form of in the return form that will be submitting. So in terms of what we are using to validate the gross income of an individual, we will use the total sum of the eTIMS invoices that they have issued to their customers, and we expect them to declare the value equivalent to the total gross of eTIMS invoices that they have issued or higher than that. And also when it comes to income, we are also using the withholding taxes to arrive at an income. And you will realize that later when we're going through these, the event that you have both eTIMS and withholding taxes, then there is a comparison made to establish what your gross income for that year can be. And again, these comparisons that we are doing and expecting one to declare the income on these are based on estimation based on the transactions that KRA has visibility of. So in the event that there is any form of income that uh, has not been subjected to any of these two, and the taxpayer has it in their books, then they are required, as it is a self-assessment, to declare the same. Then on the integrated customs management system, we are using it to validate both the imports and exports that a taxpayer has made for the financial period that they are filing for. So in case you have imports in either by way of inventory that you had purchased or imported services, then this is the system that we will use to validate how much value of imports that we will allow you to claim in your financial returns. Then a look at the validation framework, how it works. So for the validations that we have in place, we will start by going through the incomes of an individual, maybe just to clarify that the validations also started with the financial period of 2025. So any returns that are being submitted by taxpayers, either individuals or business entities, that are having a year end of 2025, then they are subjected to these validations. So in the event that you have an accounting period as a company or an incorporated entity which has a year end of 2025, and you are submitting this return with effective from 1st of January 2026, then these validations will apply to the income that you will submit. And the checks that I have just explained will be subjected to the return. So if we look at the validation of income, what do we check? For income validation, we are looking at two things. We are looking at eTIMS invoices that you have generated for the year. And then we're also looking at the gross amounts from the withholding credits that you have received in regards to any income tax withholding credit. So this is by extension also with regard to monthly rental income, if the taxpayer has no monthly rental income obligation assigned to them. So you realize for rental income, there are two regimes that you can submit your returns, either using the monthly regime or by declaring them at the end of the year. And again, commercial rent does not qualify under monthly rental income, and therefore the credits that you will receive in regards to commercial rent will be used as a basis to approximate or estimate your income for that financial year. So when the two are compared, the gross income from the withholding taxes and from the eTIMS invoices that have been generated, we are picking the maximum of them. So for example, you had eTIMS sales of 1 million and withholding gross income of 2 million, then the 2 million will be used as a basis of the minimum income we expect you to declare. Now, when it comes to expenses, we are checking some fields in the return, which I will be going through to establish that the total amounts that you have indicated in those fields, they are equal to or less than the total eTIMS invoices that have been received by you for that financial year of income. And then imports are treated differently, whereby we'll validate against the customs data any value that you will indicate in the return as relating to imports. Then the tax credits, again, as I had explained earlier, they are validated against the withholding credits that we have received, and they are separated. If it is income tax, it is treated differently. If it is relating to rental income, it is treated differently. So again, these validations were rolled out with effective from 1st January of this year, and they relate to all incomes that the taxpayer is expected to declare in their return. So an overview of what I had indicated again against income. So the maximum value that I had taken you through to use as a base of the total income we expect you to declare, it is spread across all the various streams of income. And this will come out clearly as we will be going through the template of the return itself, so that you get to know that if we have a value of 1 million.
Estin, you can try to project, huh? Try to speak a little bit louder. Estin.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So as I was saying, let me just to a bit louder now.
Sure.
Okay, so what I was trying to say here is we'll also be looking at the base value that you are using to determine your total income to declare for the year. We are spreading it again across the various types of income streams that we have in the return. So if you have a value of, let's say, the 5 million that we have, and it is relating to business income, 2 million, and then rental income, the rest, then we take the gross of all the streams of income that you have and validate it against the base value that we have for the incomes we expect you to declare in a return for that period. And when it comes to expenses, equally, we are spreading the expenses across all the values that we have indicated in your return, whether it's an expense relating to business, an expense relating to farming, an expense relating to interest income. We will take the gross figure of all the streams of income and validate them against the eTIMS and TIMS records. Just to mention again, after rollout of this, we also introduced a feature whereby in regards to the 2025 return period, the taxpayers are now allowed to give a breakdown of any expenses they incurred that are not supported by eTIMS and TIMS. And I'll be taking you through the functionality to declare the same in the return, whereby you are required to give a breakdown of the expenses and upload sample data of the invoices that you had received for that period. Then these expenses can be introduced in the return and you are allowed to claim them against your taxable income. Other than these, we also have some fields in the return template that are exempted from or excluded from the validation of eTIMS. And some of the transactions are those transactions that have been excluded expressly by the eTIMS regulations from being issued an eTIMS invoice. And just an overview of an example of these expenses are expenses with the item heads like airline ticketing, financial institution fees, imported services, or interests that have been charged on a financial facility that you are servicing. So you will realize that these are expenses that we will not be validating against the total eTIMS invoices you have received from your suppliers for that financial period. And again, imports are not validated against eTIMS. Imports, if they are relating to goods, they are validated against the custom system. And if they are relating to services, they are not validated against any of the two. So we have also some exemptions that we have granted with this filing period from these validations that we rolled out. An example is international organizations. We realize that some of the expenses could not be within the ambit of eTIMS and therefore they have been exempted from this. Diplomatic bodies and government institutions are not subjected to this. And by extension, also EPZ this is economic processing zone companies that have been registered as such, and the special economic zone companies are also exempted from the validations of income and exemption and expenses. So I will also just to mention also, if the company is also having an exemption certificate relating to the first schedule, whereby we are granting tax relief or based on certain schemes that have been approved by the policy department in KRA. Those organizations are also exempted from these validations, and also including any entity that have an exemption certificate under paragraph 10 of the Income Tax Act. And these are relating to either those organizations that have been exempted by virtue of advancing either religion, education, or eradication of poverty in Kenya, then they are exempted from the validations that we have just rolled out. So I will want us to have a view of the return template itself to bring it closer to home, so that we get to see what we have as validations and what we have as pre-filled information. So I will proceed to log into a sample pin. I hope the page that is being displayed is the iTax portal.
Belinda, you need to confirm whether that's the correct one.
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you. So this is where returns are normally submitted, and I will log in to take you through the processes that we are saying we have introduced. So first of all, when you log into your iTax portal, we have also introduced or enhanced what we are referring to as the integrated dashboard. And this is just to give you an overview of a highlight snapshot of your sales and purchases and imports for the period that you will have provided or selected based on the criteria that you have provided. Initially, this dashboard was used by the value-added tax registered taxpayers to establish their figures for a given period, to be able to help them correct some of the changes that they could have had before the period ends. So we have extended this also to the income tax, so that one can be able to view their records regarding to income tax, and then cross-match it to ensure that the correct information have been provided way before they start the filing process. And where they have any reservations on the data that has been provided, then such a taxpayer can raise it as a concern, and KRA addresses the same. So basically, if you are doing for value-added tax, you will provide the details for VAT. I think the page has frozen just a minute. I confirm my network. So for VAT, if you had any transactions for the period, then the information will be displayed on the dashboard in regards to the sales that you have generated for that period and the expenses that you have incurred for that period. And then if you are interested in income tax, again, you will come and select income tax and then provide the period, which is expected to be either 12 months or less. And then it will give you a breakdown of the sales that you generated for that year of income, any credit notes that you issued to your buyers, and the purchases you received from your suppliers who are eTIMS compliant, and any credit notes that were issued by the suppliers towards you. Then you will also have an option to download the same as an Excel file, where you can confirm the individual invoice details comprising of the total values that we have presented. I'm trying to get a similar training environment that has the data so that we can be able to see the information. The first one appears to be having some challenges. So as I was saying, for income tax, if you put the year, let's say 2025, and then up January to December, again, you should be putting the year that is commensurate to your accounting period that you have or you are maintaining so that it gets to give you the accurate figure. The system will fetch the values and present to you. And then this is the link that I was saying you will use to download the returns. So if you are in need of downloading the returns, then you will use the link that will be here to download the Excel of the summary of the invoices that are relating to the period that you have indicated. Now, in terms of filing, for you to submit a return with, allow me to use this other environment. For you to submit a return that is pre-populated or compliant to the pre-populations, you come under the returns menu, then you select file return. But if you are an individual who is only interested in filing employment income, and that is the only source of income you have, you will use the option for ITR for employment income only. But you can also use the file return option. So once you select the file return option and select the obligation that you're filing for, which is income tax company for a corporate entity, then you will be presented by, first of all, the accounting period that you are expected to file the return for. And then there will be a button that is indicating to you to download auto-populated IT company return. So you will click on this auto-populated IT return for you to be able to get the Excel that has the pre-filled information that we are talking about. And I have one I had downloaded. We can have a view of it. So when I was saying that the return comes with some information pre-filled, the information that are in this return were downloaded the way it is. And it comes with some of the information already pre-filled for you to confirm the details yourself. So if you're filing for that accounting period that is starting 1st July 2024 to 30th June 2025, the period will come pre-filled. And then the other information that we are also pre-filling is in regard to the expenses that we have in the return. And I need to move this. And this will be basically in the last sheet for installment taxes. You'll find that you have the installment taxes already pre-filled in the return for the payment registrations that you have made for that financial year. So you'll not need to put these details again. And then lastly, if you have any withholding taxes, they will come pre-filled in the return under tax computation. So under tax computation, you'll find the withholding taxes already pre-filled. If there is any rental income that you have that you need to declare at the end of the financial year, the withholding taxes relating to that rental income will be pre-filled. Now, when it comes to previous year losses, we are currently not pre-filling this, but we are working to have this to be pre-filled in the subsequent return filing seasons. And now, my focus will shift to the income tax profit and loss account, just to take you through what are some of the fields that we are using to validate and what are some of the fields that we are exempting from the validations of eTIMS and TIMS. So as I was saying earlier, if you had revenue of let's say 100 million that is expected for that year of income based on eTIMS invoices and withholding tax gross incomes, then however much you will split the incomes across the various streams that are there available in the template, and this is in regards to either the business income, the farming, or the rental, then the total that we have under the consolidated column is what will be used as the total to validate against your end of year returns when it is being submitted. So if you had 15 million and you had spread it across the various sources of income, either under 1.1 or 1.2, and by extension also when you scroll the template, we normally have a section down here for other incomes where you describe the income if it is not suiting what we have provided up there, and you give it to any of the columns that we have available here, then the sum of the income that you'll have generated will be used to validate for the total revenue that we expect you to declare for that period. Now, when it comes to expenses, I would want to mention what we are not using to validate for eTIMS expenses. Then, with that in mind, the rest of the remaining value for expenses is now used, or the total is summed up and validated against the total invoices you received from your suppliers in terms of eTIMS invoices received. So when it comes to the issue of opening stock, we are not validating any of the opening stock. You recall that this cannot be supported by eTIMS currently, but local purchases, we expect them to be validated against eTIMS invoices that you have received for that financial period. Imported goods is only supported against customs data, so I'll put some figures in the exempt fields so that you can be able to track the same as we go along. Imported services, they are not currently being validated against any data source, but we intend to use this to validate against the significant economic presence tax registered taxpayers. Then direct wages and other direct costs is also not validated against any eTIMS invoices that you might have received for that year or period. Then scrolling down, we have also the fields for gifts in connection with the exploitation of property. This is also exempted from validation of eTIMS. Any profit or surplus on disposal of assets is also not validated against eTIMS and eTIMS record. Realized or unrealized exchange gain is also not validated against eTIMS and TIMS records. Bad debts recovered also equally is not validated against eTIMS and TIMS records, including also insurance compensation received. Now, these ones, you realize these are transactions that you do not need to get an eTIMS invoice for, and therefore they are not validated against the total value that you will have against eTIMS and TIMS records. You can take these as you have an eTIMS lump sum value somewhere, whereby anytime you put a figure in a field that we use to validate your eTIMS records, it is extracted from that global pool that you have for invoices until you exhaust the same. So when it comes to operating expenses, airline ticketing is not validated against eTIMS and TIMS record. And you can recall that this is one of the transactions that have been excluded from the validations of TIMS and eTIMS. And then also coming down here, depreciation, which is normally allowed as a wear and tear allowance, is also not validated against your eTIMS and TIMS records. The entire of 6.5 relating to employment income, the entire 6.5 relating to employment income, these are salaries that you pay to your employees and any costs relating to their welfare or the employment status of those employees. So the entire of this section is not validated against eTIMS and TIMS records. And then when it comes to financial expenses, interest expense which is normally charged by the bank on a loan facility that you're servicing, we are also not validating this against eTIMS and TIMS. And then lastly, if you have any financial, any fees charged by your financial provider, be it M-Pesa or the bank, the fees charged on transfer of monies is now also not validated against TIMS and eTIMS. And then lastly, realized exchange gain, we are exempting that, and also unrealized exchange gain is also exempted from eTIMS and TIMS. Additional also not validated is the commitment fees, and then any loss on disposal of an asset and gain on disposal of an asset is also exempted from being supported by an eTIMS invoice. Now, the rest of the remaining expense field items, they are validated against what you should have received in regards to eTIMS and TIMS invoice. Now, with this, you'll realize that we have also some taxpayers that despite these validations, they incurred some expenses that they did not receive eTIMS invoices, but they have the documentation to support the same. And for the financial year of 2025, we provided for a window for them to be able to submit records of these non-eTIMS invoices that they had expended during that financial period, and for it to be allowed to be claimed in the return. Now, when you go to section M under tax computation for the return, you'll realize that we have additional fields that we have introduced, what we are referring to as a manual, non-eTIMS expenses, accounting and accrual adjustment for income, and accounting and accrual adjustments for expenses. Now, these ones, the taxpayer has to provide for them prior to filing the return. And by prior, I mean before you submit this return, you ought to have provided these fields somewhere in iTax portal where I will show you. And then you come and put the total value of the fields that you have put in the other section under this field. So when we are saying manual eTIMS invoices that you have for that financial period, what we are saying is, as much as you might have provided to us a listing of the manual expenses, you do not come and mix them with the other expenses under the income, the profit and loss return. You come and put them under the manual and eTIMS expenses as per the schedule that you had uploaded on the portal. So I'll go back to the iTax portal, which is this, and I'll click on home to go to the home page. And under the returns menu, let me zoom in a bit. Under the returns menu, we have another menu that we introduced that is called income tax return adjustments. So under income tax return adjustments, you can be able to upload to us your manual non-eTIMS invoices you received for that year of income that you wish to claim against your taxable income to arrive at the profit that is subjected to tax, and also any accounting and accrual adjustments that you have had as a result of the books of accounts that you prepared and you wish to incorporate them into your filing for when you are preparing your return. So we'll go through, first of all, the manual and non-eTIMS invoices that you can prepare. And for here, the page that will result is, first of all, you have to select the tax period, and this could be 2025. And then you click on the next button. It will ask you to confirm that you want to make the adjustments. And then we have a hyperlink, which you are referring to as click here, whereby you will be able to click on it to be able to, you'll click on the hyperlink to be able to get an Excel template that you will use to input in now the details of those manual invoices. And once you do that, you will come and upload it under the upload CSV option.
After you upload the CSV, you are supposed to give us also a scan of the sample invoices up to a maximum size of 10 MB, and we accept those file types that we have there, either Word documents, PDF, Excel files, to be used as part of the sample invoices. Now, these sample invoices have to be uploaded as one file. So if you have many invoices, you have to merge them into one file and upload them here as part of the sample invoices that you are using to support your uploaded CSV for the manual eTIMS or non-eTIMS expenses. So if you click here and download, it will give you a template, and I can just open it for us to appreciate what it has. And the template you'll get, this is the way it will be presented to you. So what you do is the headers will remain as is. You do not alter them. And then where you have the supplier PIN, you provide the same. In the event you do not have any, you leave it blank. Then the supplier name is mandatory. The invoice number is mandatory. The invoice date is mandatory, and a short description of what the expense is about and the amount. Now, when it comes to amount, I need to just clarify. If you are a VAT registered taxpayer and you received an invoice that is charging VAT, if you had claimed the same under the VAT returns, then the amount you need to claim in regards to income tax is the taxable amount, not the total invoice amount. But if you are not VAT registered, then the total invoice amount is what you will use to claim as an expense in your book of accounts when you are preparing the financial records. Because the VAT that was charged is an expense, since you are not VAT registered, is an expense to you as the end user of the item or the service. Now, when we come to a sample of the file that has been filled for the manual eTIMS expenses, and this is a sample file for training purposes. Where you have a PIN, it will be indicated. It has to be a valid KRA PIN, then the name of the taxpayer, and then the invoice number, the date, and the amount. So if you do not have a PIN again, you leave it blank. Then for this file to work properly, in the amount section, avoid using comma separators, as they will be treated as two different columns at the point of upload, and you might get errors at the point of uploading. Initially, we were not pinpointing also on errors that taxpayers would encounter when uploading, but we resolved. Now the system tells you the exact PIN that has an issue in the event that there is a change that you need to make on your file when you're uploading. Now, just to again upload a sample file so that we see what you expect once you have uploaded, I'll select the file I just recently opened, and then a PDF file, and then submit. So again, this list of expenses that we are uploading at this stage, they will be used by the compliance officers at a later stage when they are conducting their compliance reviews for the returns filed. So once you have successfully submitted your listing of expenses, then it will tell you the non-eTIMS invoice has been uploaded successfully, and it will give you an acknowledgement number. Now, once you have done this, is now when you come to your return template itself and go to the sheet for tax computation, which is M, and you will put here the total value of the expenses that you just uploaded. So that is the total value of the expenses you uploaded in regards to business income. So the error I'm getting is because of I need some correction on the profit and loss. So once you declare that total figure there, then when it comes to accounting adjustments, either for income or expenses, again, you have to make these adjustments prior to submitting the return. So I'll go back to the portal again, and we'll go back to the returns main. Under income tax return adjustments, we have a sub-menu for accounting and accrual adjustments. So you'll select on it, and then here, Also, you will tell us which tax period that you are making these adjustments for. And you will upload here a supporting document, could be books of accounts. And then for income, you come and say what kind of adjustment is it? Is it a deferred income that is to be recognized in your subsequent books? Is it an exempt income that you issued eTIMS invoices against? Or is it an insurance contract that is under IFRS 417 that you need to omit from the tax declarations when you're making them? Or is it a prepayment that you had made? So you select what kind of income is it. Then you will give us the value of the income and then a brief description. This deferred rental income yet to be realized. And then you click on add. So it will give a table down here that gives a brief description of what you have added. Then you can add multiple if you have multiple. Then when it comes to expense adjustment, you'll come up again to the tab for expense adjustments and then select from the drop down what kind of an adjustment in terms of expense are you making. Is it an adjustment in regards to cost of goods sold that is outside what we have already exempted in the return, mentioning just the opening and closing stock? Or is it an accrued expense from a previous financial period that you're now declaring in this? Or under any of the other fields that we provided? And if not conclusive, you can select the other and describe what kind of an expense is it that you are describing. So just to also clarify that these expenses that you are making adjustments for are different from the manual and eTIMS invoices. So these are accounting adjustments you are making and not really introducing additional expenses to this. So you can have the accrued and then give the value of the accrued expense that you are having and then describe what it is. After that, you can click on the add it will give you a similar breakdown of what we had in the other section, and you can add more to the expense adjustments that you have for that period. Then once you have done these and submitted, of course, after providing with us a supporting documentation, once you have submitted, then the value that you have for income adjustment, which is 3 million, you'll come to the return template and put it under income, accounting and accrual adjustments for income, that 3 million. And then the one that you have for expenses, you come and put it under adjustments for expenses. You realize now the taxable income changes based on the fields that you'll have put here. These are not to be put under the profit and loss account because that one will be subjected now to the eTIMS invoices that you received duly for that financial year. So after this, then you have submitted, of course, this. Once you have submitted, the return will validate against the information that you provided under this section. Again, it will give you an acknowledgement number, but currently we don't provide the download of the acknowledgement number. At a later stage, we will be providing a download of the same. So once you have done this, then you come back to file returns. And this is after you have now validated your Excel template that you have generated and you have identified that those are the expenses you have, and then you validate the return. The system or the Excel template will create for you an upload file that you will come and now upload here. And then after upload, your return should be able to go through. Now, after all this, I think maybe just to clarify also in relation to monthly rental income, if you are a taxpayer that is registered for monthly rental income and you have filed for all your income under the monthly rental income regime, and it is your only source of income, then at the end of the year when you are filing your income tax resident return or non-resident return or the income tax company return, then the amount that you had declared under monthly rental income will be adjusted and excluded from the total income we expect from your return. So if you had other sources of income other than the rental income, we only expect you to declare that which is from that other source, because the base value that you will have determined for your rental income will be net of the gross rental income you declared under your monthly rental income. Equally, if you're registered for turnover tax, you realize that for incorporated entities, they can either have turnover tax and not have income tax company. But for individuals, you can have both income tax resident and turnover tax. So when you're making your declarations at the end of the year, that income which was declared under turnover tax is excluded from your declarations at the end of the year. And therefore, this is just to avoid the double taxation on income that has already been generated. And when I mentioned that we are also extracting the value for income from withholding certificates or withholding credit that you have received as a taxpayer, this is just to clarify that we are using those nature of transactions that are not final tax. So if it is a withholding relating to final tax, we do not use that gross income, like the examples of interest on government bonds and interest from other bonds outside Kenya. We are not using the gross income from such transactions that are final tax to arrive at your gross income. Those ones are completely excluded and not used in this instance. Another mention on self-supply invoices, and self-supply could be I consumed my own products and therefore I issued an eTIMS invoice to myself. So such invoices will be expected to be declared as income on your part when you are declaring income for income tax purposes. But for expenses, such expenses will not be provided as an expense that is eTIMS generated. So we do not expect you to claim an expense from yourself, but it is an income where you have consumed the goods and an eTIMS invoice was generated. Some of the errors that we expect taxpayers to encounter during this filing season is we have had some challenges whereby some taxpayers have submitted either a nil return and then they come to submit the actual return and they have manual eTIMS invoices they would wish to claim. We've had a challenge whereby they cannot be able to introduce the same into the system. And again, this is the initial design of the system, that you cannot introduce manual eTIMS invoices where you had already generated and submitted your return. But in the event that you had submitted a return with the manual eTIMS invoices having declared and you wish to make an adjustment of the same, the system will allow you to make adjustments and it will use the most current file that you have uploaded for the manual invoices for it to validate the value of the total manual invoices that is claimable against your income. And then initially, in the initial stages of this delivery, we had a scenario whereby if you are making any accounting adjustments, we were providing a mandatory declaration for you to give us the details of an auditor in the return. And this is just to clarify that it is no longer mandatory for you to declare the details of the auditor and basic information here when you are making the accounting adjustments. So if you put a PIN, it has to be a valid KRA PIN. But if you have made the adjustments and you've not declared the details for the auditor, the return should be able to proceed as seamlessly as possible. Then I think from the previous Q&A when I was just going through, there was a concern whether a tax exemption organization needs to issue eTIMS invoices. And maybe just to clarify, the answer is yes. As much as it is tax exempt, there is a recipient who is in need of that eTIMS invoice that the organization has provided for them, either a good or service. that they will need to claim against their income when they are filing their returns. And I think just a quick overview. If you are preparing to file your returns, have your documentations ready in place or the accounting books prepared. You can establish what is supported by eTIMS and what is not, so that this will help you to prepare a schedule for the manual expenses that you need to upload for you to be able to complete your return conclusively, and verify the withholding certificates if they are all of them available. And just to also mention, there is a WhatsApp filing for the taxpayers that are filing either nil returns or employment income only. And the contact number for the WhatsApp, I think, had been shared earlier, and it's also on the post that I'm projecting now. And the number is 0711 with the 099 999, whereby you can chat with a KRA bot, and a one-time password is sent to your mobile number that is registered on iTax. If you do not remember your PIN, you can use your national ID and you can be able to submit your return in as easy as 3 steps. So this is in regards to the filing changes that we've done in the period 2025 and some of the validations that we expect the system to conduct. And I welcome any questions that the forum might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belinda. Before we can take the questions, Mr. Peter, you're still in the training?
Yes, Mildred, I'm here. Thank you very much. We appreciate the progress. Team, thank you so much. That is awesome. We are almost coming to an end, but we're going to have Q&A. We are going to have one of us. Remember, we said AAMECC is a membership organization, and we have experts. So one of the things we are going to hear next is what is the position of these professionals, the auditors, the agents who work with KRA. And we have one of our own, it's called Collins Brire. He's a CPA and he's a member of AAMECC, and is going to have the next few minutes, just like 5 minutes, to talk about what he does and his input in this. And then after that, we're going to have the Q&A. So as Brire prepares, can we have the clip? Office team, can we have the clip? Thank you so much for holding. We are finishing up with a very, very important engagement on the role of the professionals and agents. Okay, listening. There's no audio. So Collins, you're preparing, and then
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.
continue to participate in this type of events is one of the key to know more about different business and different opportunities so that you can grow your business in your contact.
Personally, I have met a couple of people and a couple of organizations which are very critical for networking, where you will either meet mentors or potential clients, that kind of thing, because that's very important even as a businessman.
It was really good to see data that is just based on people's lived experiences. I think that data is really useful for businesses because now when they are thinking about designing products and services, they can actually design with actual data that has been verified, that is factual, and that came from the potential users and customers that they are designing for.
One thing I have to say is that know your product. It is very important for you to understand your product so that even as you sell it to other people, you really know your product, you really understand, you really have a vision, you really even know why the product is as it is and why you came up with the product. So it is very important for anyone who wants to do business and even to scale to understand their product.
One is that you just don't go into business based on a hunch. Okay, you must have what we call a clear plan, know exactly where you are, know exactly where you're going, and then you can decide on how to actually get there. And thereafter, you must always keep track of the progress that you're making.
My advice from the beginning, this is like, you need to meet people face to face. The second advice is that you need to give time to cooperation, because first you need to become partners, you need to know each other, and then go to business related cases. And maybe at the end, to not be afraid to travel, to discover new countries, and to feel like the citizen of the world.
We are so grateful to AAMECC to a large extent because they have been very flexible. We got together just in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we are doing this, and it's a resounding success. So we thank them for allowing us to present and to meet the business leaders that have been present today.
Okay, thank you very much for staying put. Like I said, AAMECC is Africa, Asia, Middle East Chamber of Commerce. We are membership organizations, and one of the things we look into is working with the regulators, like it's happening today, across the regions that we are in, Africa, Asia, Middle East. I'm speaking to you from Kuala Lumpur today, Malaysia, and we are privileged to work with the KRA, to partner with the KRA at this time when there's migration to eTIMS, and share knowledge. And so check us, www.amec.org. I want to bring in Collins Brire, as stated, for 5 minutes to talk to us. I believe you're ready now. And then after that, questions. I hope we are sharing questions on the chat, and we'll open the mic, and we'll be closing in the next few. Stay put. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. CPA Brire Daniel. I can see you very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Hope I'm audible enough.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. So my name is Collins Daniel Bwire. I'm a CPA and I'm a member of AAMECC, the international body. I'm a tax expert. I am also registered with ISPAC. And mine is to share a few highlights that I picked up from the questions, the Q&As, and I will do a detailed report for all the questions and answers that I've seen. Some we cannot be able to fully address, but for the others, I'll do a report, then share with Peter so that it can be disseminated to every other person who has been able to attend to this session. So thank you so much. There is something I would like to address about the tax exemption. I want to appreciate, first of all, for the KRA partners who have been able to come out and highlight these matters that many people are always ever asking about, eTIMS and eTIMS. eTIMS is the new platform that we are using for trading. It's an invoicing platform that KRA has established for people to use. And the beauty about it is this thing is free. Apart from being free, it's also easy to use and accessible from any other parts that as long as you're connected to the internet. Also for record management, when you have the eTIMS, the one that is the website of KRA from etims.go.ke, it is accessible, and also the records can be accessed by any other person from wherever time, because it's a website. You can log in and review every other single ETR that you've ever raised. And I'll also say, though we have some few challenges, especially for the teams, not the eTIMS. Teams, as had earlier on been mentioned, teams were integrated to the KRA platform. So for the teams, we have sometimes we have transmission issues whereby you have somebody has raised an invoice or so-called an ETR, but the ETR has not been transmitted. So mainly it's because of integration on the part of the end user, and also mainly because of network and connectivity issues. So it's always ever good for somebody to check on their connectivity and make sure that they have the best internet and the gadget is transmitting. So by the time you're going to do your filing of the VAT or whatever type of return you're doing, you also need to be sure that the Z report or the summary of the total sales you've done via Teams or eTIMS is equal to whatever that you have auto-populated from the KRA platform. We have been shown how you do the auto-population. And if you can compare those two and you compare with your invoicing system that you're using, then you can do a 3-tier check. So you have your own system, you also check on the Z report, you also check on the auto-populated. In case you have any variance, that's where you can address using, you can raise that with the KRA offices. They're very open and very friendly. Then the biggest that I see is about compliance on the part of the people who trade with them. Especially somebody you have, but you cannot be able to claim that expense because this person does not issue with ETR receipts. So that's a big concern. But KRA has been able to help us.
Is it my side or your side? Can anybody hear Collins?
Claim.
We're losing him.
Can you hear him?
No, we're losing him.
Okay,
We've
so
lost him.
People to do that. Then some of the expenses that salaries are paid via. So those ones you don't need eTIMS validation, but they are legit. Expenditure. Under salary, we have expenses such as the NSSF contribution, salaries. We have that because KRA allows every staff, every person
Mr.
up to
Daniel?
a maximum of 5,000 per person. Yes?
We lost you, so please go back a bit, like 1 minute ago.
Yes, okay, thank you. Hope I'm clear.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, so I was speaking about expenses that are not validated via eTIMS. I mentioned about salaries and anything that is around cost of salaries. So we have the NSSF contribution that we contribute. Then we also have wages. Then we have staff meals. You know, KRA has a provision that allows every staff member to up to a maximum of 5,000 per person per month. That is not taxable. So we can leverage on that to also minimize on the taxation. And we're also looking at a loan interest. A loan interest is an expense that is admissible, but you don't have to get an eTIMS for that. We have the bank charges and the bank commitment fees. So we have big bonds and so on and so forth, the charges that banks impose on us. Then we also have M-Pesa charges. So these are some, and also we have the air travel. Air travel, we don't have eTIMS for that. And whenever you're claiming your expenses, those ones are not validated by eTIMS, but you can use them. I will go straight to some of the questions that were asked about taxation. So for taxation, somebody asked about exemption. So on matters exemptions are only given by KRA, and we have bodies exemption by nature of operation. We have like the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs. Is it a must for you to have eTIMS when you're tax exempt? Currently, whenever you need a tax compliance certificate and you're a business and you're trading, you must have eTIMS because it has been configured such that you cannot download a tax compliance certificate without getting eTIMS. So eTIMS is now literally it's a must to have for businesses, and it's also for your own good. Then I'll also mention about the nature of exemption. Currently, as we speak, the tax exempt part that I'm still speaking about. So we have exemption of organization, and we also have exemption on persons living with disabilities, whereby you have to be vetted so that when you do have exemption as a person living with disability, that is a benefit to you, matters taxation. I'll also mention something about taxation, where we have periods of paying taxes. Businesses that are trading and are due to pay taxes, we always ever have installment taxes that are paid quarterly on four equal installments. The first installment being in the month of 20th of April. You pay an installment tax in the year in which you are operating. So 20th of April, we have 20th of June, we have 20th of September, and we also have 20th of December. So these ones are paid within the year. Then after the year, you have a period of 4 months up to the 30th of June to pay the final tax for the year that you just completed. So that's why we always ever have instances you file your returns, you're supposed to pay, let's say 80,000, but you end up paying more. It's because of the interest on the timeline. You are supposed to pay by the 30th. Like for the returns we are doing now for the year 2025, we ought to have paid our final tax as of 30th of April this year. So by now it's only that the filing bit is one that ends by the 30th of June. Then tax exemption. I'll also mention about something about taxation, especially on the pay-as-you-earn. There are some elements of people being overtaxed, and this comes mainly because of the fact that your employment returns, you get that you have a negative, some huge figures, 100,000, 50,000. These exemptions are more than the amount of relief that you receive, because the personal relief is only 28,000, and the tax categories that we select, when you're paying somebody a lump sum amount, let's say a bonus, they're not supposed to be taxed directly as pay, because we have provisions for lump sum payments, which is a bit lenient because it's prorated, and it's not taxed as the normal, because the normal one is on a graduated scale, because the first bit of between 0 to 24,000 is taxed at 10%. The next tier until you get to the highest whereby you're taxed at 35%. So I'll also speak about when somebody is working on taxation, kindly I would urge every single person to always ever, if you're not conversant in taxation, you can visit KRA offices or get any consultant that can be able to walk you through that filing process, and avoid doing shortcuts where somebody will tell you, I will file for you maybe from a cyber or so. So these things don't really work, and we have people getting assessments, and these nature of assessments are because some of them are self-imposed, because we had an opportunity of working with KRA or a consultant, but somebody chose to work with other parties. So I will continue addressing some of the issues that have been raised later on. Then I will be able to share most of these items with you as a PDF report later on. Thank you. I think that's it from my side.
So, Collins, before you go, Mr.
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
what is the place of agents and professionals, and how can we identify to know the right agents to deal with, with especially when we want to engage these matters, the carried, for example, teams, filing of returns, the discussion today. How can we identify this is the legit agent first? Number two, when do you know that you actually need an agent to work with? Yeah. And I know even when the KRA moderator comes in, she's going to start from there. And then we head up to the session for closure. Thank you so much. I'm seeing people are joining even now. It's so important for us. That's why we overshot a little bit. Okay. Mr. Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. We have a governing body in Kenya, that is the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, that is ACPAC in short. And when you go to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, you can be able to search for members. And these are members who registered members from ISPAC. From there, you can check them by their names, or you can inquire from them. They can be able. You can also be able to get a list of people who are members, and you also get people who are in practice. There's a difference between somebody being a member and being in practice. Being in practice, that is one who has a license. Then you can also engage a carer on such matters, because KRA is also the agency, but from their side, they cannot be able to point for you a certain auditor or a certain qualified person. And also, when do you know that you need a professional on these matters? You need a professional on these matters because whenever you're trading, you have to, whenever you're trading, you literally need to get a professional to help you on tax matters. Not only tax matters, because as a professional accountant or auditor or a consultant, will be able to guide you on many other matters, not only taxation. You know, KRA will only align with the taxes because that's their mandate to collect. But a professional will guide you on finances, on matters, accounting, systems, and so on and so forth, and also record keeping as well, because you really need to have systems in place that can be able to support you, and also systems that can be able to help you grow. It's not a matter of selling and buying or banking. So accounts is handy for any entity, be it trading as a person, trading as a company, every other person who is trading, be it a business, be it a person, to always ever make an effort to get insights, to learn and understand, not just leave it all to your professional to do everything for you. You also need to inquire, talk to them, and they will be able to empower you in your business. Thank you, Peter. I hope I covered most of what you had asked.
Indeed. So how can we find you? What is your organization, and how can we find you?
For me, mine is my website is www.cac.co.ke, and I am a member of ISPAC, and that can also be verified on the ISPAC portal. You can check my name. You can search my name is Bwire Collins Daniel, and also I will also share my contact. That's phone number 0723 688802. For anybody, you can also call for insights and guidance on matters taxation, accounting, and audit.
Okay, so put those contacts in on our chat as well. Your website contacts. We appreciate so much. One of our mandates as a membership organization is being able to identify the right professionals, the right and legit people to work with, and relay the correct information to the public. And that's why we are here with KRA today. That's why we are bringing our members who are professionals in that field as we talk about this very important aspect. So thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Participants, we are moving on to closure now, and the last bit is I'm going to bring in back the moderator from KRA, Mildred. And we are expecting, we have many questions again. Collins has tried to answer some of them as well, and we appreciate so much. In the chat over there, remain to the very end. Thank you so much. I see people are still joining, and we really appreciate. So Mildred, you're here?
Yes, I am. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter, for that. I think the whole session has been really engaging. We started out with Miss Purity Monye, who took us through everything eTIMS. Then we had Mr. Estin Bulinda from CARE, who took us through now the validation of the expenses and demonstrated how to do it. Then we've had CPA Bwire, who has addressed some of the questions and the concerns that have been raised. So the session has been really engaging. And I like something that he said, because basically, as a taxpayer in Kenya, you have the right of information. So what to register, how to go about it, and even how to go about your returns and compliance. You have that right of information. And as Carrie, you can come to us and we can advise. Our services are free of charge. But where you need additional assistance, you can work with an accountant, especially on your books of accounts. You can work with a consultant. So that is how they come in. We may not have a directory of everyone who's registered, but Institute of Certified Public Accountants does have a directory, so you're able to search through their membership number and to see if they're just registered or they're practicing, or if they're actually certified public accountants registered in Kenya. Mr. Peter might advise in terms of AAMECC, in terms of registration, if there's another way to verify the same. But as of right now, I can see your questions. Most of the questions have been addressed, if not all. So if you still have a question that has not been addressed, please put it on the chat box. You can also raise your hand as I see if there's anything that has not been addressed, because I can see most of them have been addressed on the session and on the chat box. The one that was recurring was on exemption, which was addressed. Maybe we can take one. Mr. Einstein, I don't know if you're in. There's this question: between integrated iTax dashboard and data under what was actually filed, what is more accurate to go by? This has been raised by Caroline. Mr. Belinda, I don't know if you got the question.
I think maybe just to respond to Caroline, the two serve a different purpose. The dashboard that we have on the portal, it gives you a breakdown of the eTIMS invoices that you issued vis-a-vis the eTIMS invoices you received from your suppliers. But the data that is used for filing can include, in addition, manual eTIMS invoices that were uploaded and the accounting adjustments. So one is a subset of the other. The dashboard has data that feeds into the return. The return can have additional information that is not on the dashboard.
Okay, that is clear,
I
Caroline.
hope that is clear.
Yes, your question has been answered. On tax-exempt organizations, that has been addressed. I cannot see any other question that has not been addressed. So kindly, if you're still with us with a question, put it on the chat box or raise your hand so that you're able to address that. As of right now, I can't see anything else that has not been addressed. Miss Evelyn has been on the chats addressing all the questions. Caroline says that's clear. Okay, so from me, I don't have any additional comments before I hand it over to Mr. Peter. Mr. Belinda, I know the deadline is fast approaching on 30th of June. Do you have any closing remarks in terms of the filing and eTIMS? You can hear me? Okay. So, Miss Purity, if you can hear me, do you have any closing?
I can hear you, Mildred. Maybe just to, as part of my closing remarks, is I'll assure our taxpayers that we have put measures in place to ensure that the system is fully available when they require it to file. And whenever they have any inquiries to make through our citizen relations uh, department or section, we have already opened up extended working hours with some of our offices, and we are fully on deck to support their filing season.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, extended working hours, a system that will ensure that you're able to do your returns on time. I don't know if Miss Caroline is still with us. Caroline Gitegi.
Yes, Mildred. Yeah.
Any comments before we hand
Yes.
it back?
Yeah, so I can just confirm that now we understand, we are prepared, and we are informed with the KRA eTIMS requirements, and we look forward towards working in sync with AAMECC. Thank you, and thank you to our facilitators and AAMECC team.
Okay, thank you for that. Once again, a big thank you to our facilitators from the eTIMS Operations Office and to CPA for that session. From us as Civic Education, the content is still available on KRA TV. You can get tutorials and guides on declaring your manual invoices, on eTIMS invoicing as well, and our contacts are on the chat box. Thank you so much for this session and making time. So I'll give it back to Mr. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mildred, for a very nice coordination, moderation. Appreciate Caroline Gitegi for putting this in place. And thank you so much, Mr. Bulandi and Purity and CPA Daniel for wonderful work. And so as we come to the end of today's insightful session, I would like to sincerely thank everyone. Today's discussion has reaffirmed the importance of continuous learning. Continuous learning is the word. Please check out AAMECC.org. You will get more information there. And innovation, collaboration in building sustainable and successful organization. The knowledge shared today is not only relevant for our current operations, but also critical in preparing our businesses for future growth and competitive environment that we've entered in. At AAMECC, we remain committed to providing platforms that empower businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, and institutions through knowledge sharing, networking, trade promotion, investment facilitation, and strategic partnerships across these regions we represent. Beyond Kenya, most of us are Kenyans. We are talking of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. We are talking of market access. We are talking of compliance. We are talking of advocacy. We encourage you to stay connected with us and take advantage of our upcoming webinars. We normally have a signature event called CEO Conclave. It's already in the website for your registration. Become a member of AAMECC. There are many packages there if you go to our website. And the team in the office is sharing that one in our website, in the chat as well, AAMECC.org. Please share the direct link to membership, the team in the office. Yeah. Together, let us continue building stronger businesses, stronger partnerships, and stronger economies. We look into this other side. I'm speaking to you today from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we connect people from all over, even investors, even partners. We give right information, like our endeavor today to have KRA is because there's a lot of confusion, getting the wrong information. In fact, like the way we brought CPA Daniel here, we do that. We can even come to us so that we can be able to give you, a professional who is, vetted and who is credible, and will be involved with you in the journey through and through. So we really, really appreciate so much. I want to say thank you again to everyone who has, been here from the beginning to the very end. We appreciate so much. And let's see you again. This is the beginning with the collaboration with KRA. You're going to see a lot of that in our socials. You can follow us in the LinkedIn accounts, put them here also, the LinkedIn accounts, the social accounts, you can follow us and you'll be able to find us. Team in the office, you can do that as we play the clip about AAMECC and declare this wonderful webinar. A very important engagement has come to an end at this moment. Thank you so much and bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.
Continue to participate in this type of events is one of the key to know more about different business and different opportunities so that you can grow your business and your contacts.
Personally, I have met a couple of people and a couple of organizations which are very critical for networking, where you will either meet mentors or potential clients, that kind of thing, because that's very important even as a businessman.
It was really good to see data that is just based on people's lived experiences. I think that data is really useful for businesses because now when they are thinking about designing products and services, they can actually design with actual data that has been verified, that is factual, and that came from the potential users and customers that they are designing for.
One thing I have to say is that know your product. It is very important for you to understand your product so that even as you sell it to other people, you really know your product, you really understand, you really have a vision, you really even know why the product is as it is and why you came up with the product. So it is very important for anyone who wants to do business and even to scale to understand their product.
One is that you just don't go into business based on a hunch. Okay, you must have what we call a clear plan, know exactly where you are, know exactly where you're going, and then you can decide on how to actually get there. And thereafter, you must always keep track of the progress that you're making.
My advice from the beginning, this is like, you need to meet people face to face. The second advice is that you need to give time to cooperation, because first you need to become partners, you need to know each other, and then go to business related cases. And maybe at the end to not be afraid to travel, to discover new countries, and to feel like the citizen of the world.
We are so grateful to AAMECC to a large extent because they have been very flexible. We got together just in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we are doing this, and it's a resounding success. So we thank them for allowing us to present and to meet the business leaders that have been present today.
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, Expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC